And this is going to be Mr. Gabriel Luna from all the way from Ecuador. We have listened to producers in Asian countries. Now, I think somebody wants to talk in between me. Okay, they can go ahead. Okay. We will be looking forward to hear to Mr. Gabriel Luna all the way from Ecuador. And it's quite interesting that he's here with us. And Mr. Simon Salajure, our EC member, will be introducing Mr. Gabriel, and we look forward to listening to him. Yes, Mr. Simon, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and good morning. The speaker of the final presentation is Mr. Gabriel Luna. The topic is Ecuador Production Overview. Mr. Gabriel Luna works as an international purchase advisor for several companies who are sourcing shrimps from Ecuador and Mexico. He was a sales manager for a major shrimp plant and exporter in Ecuador until 2008. He is the representative in Ecuador for two of the most important seafood companies in France and Italy. He has been a shrimp farmer since 2015. Mr. Gabriel also owns a market report and statistics company named G. Luna Shrimp. This company offers market advisory services for Ecuador production. When we had an informal pre-webinar discussion yesterday, Mr. Gabriel informed that he is having few surprises in his presentation about Ecuador industry. We are very eager to listen from you, Mr. Gabriel. Please take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm going to go straight into the statistics. I have several slides to show. So I want to talk to you about Ecuador production, and I'm going to start with our production exports since 2005 until 2020. Now you can see all of my numbers are made in pounds, and you have to keep that in mind throughout the whole presentation because everybody's been presenting in tons. As you can see in the export numbers, Ecuador has had a very interesting growth since the year 2009 until present. In 2009 was the first time in 10 years that we recuperated and got back from the white spot disease of 1998-99 in Ecuador. It took us 10 years to get back to the same number that we were exporting in 1998. And that's the number you see there, the 299 million pounds. From then until now, the growth has been of about 4 times. So a little bit over 4 times, 4.5 times in Ecuador. But Ecuador has not grown in hectares as much as they have grown in the production exports. So our growth has been in learning to harvest, to produce shrimp in the same area, but having higher output numbers per hectare. We are still very extensive, semi-extensive. I don't think we have at this moment many intensive farms still going on. There was very, very little intensive farming in Ecuador throughout the years. We see between 10 to 15 animals per square meter. The people who see the most, maybe 20. And in the recent pandemic, of course, everything changed in order to be able to control expenses and the cost of the final product. People decreased their stocking densities a little bit. Okay, so from 2010 and on, this growth is exponential. And why is it like that? In 2010, there was the oil spill in the United States. So that spiked up the prices of 4150 head echelon, which was our main producing size. And when that happened, the farmers realized that there was a a possibility of a good price and a better future. So we still had some farms that were not in use from the white spot era. They had been built before, but they were not in use. When the price increased in the 2010 year because of the Gulf spill, a lot of farmers got motivated and said, we are going to reactivate the farms that have been left idle. Okay, so that happened in 2010. And then 2010 to 2013, you see some growth, but it's not exponential as it is in from 2013 to 2014. And that's because that's when EMS happened. And EMS immediately created an opportunity as far as price of raw material to the farmer and as far as demand. Demand started to increase everywhere because, of course, Asia was down in their production. Everybody who had EMS was down in their production. And we had a window of opportunity to increase our production. And we did. Thank goodness Ecuador has a weather that we can produce year round, the same amount of shrimp. I will show you in the next graphs how that works. I wanted to explain a little bit about the growth and why this exponential growth was here. So 2015, 16, 17 were all years of fairly good prices because of the EMS was still being adjusted. The production in the world was being adjusted. And then 18 and 19, the prices went down, but our growth momentum had already happened. We had already began to invest in aerators, in better pumps for our farms. We move more water, and of course, feed factories improved, and a lot of competition came into Ecuador, seeing how Ecuador became a big player in the shrimp producing industry. And now we have a better and higher quality feed, which all bounce back to meaning we have better growths in our farms. So far, until August, Ecuador is up by 6% compared to January through August of the year 2019. Now, when we look at this, it looks like, okay, Ecuador is up 6%, but the reality is that we were on our way to being up 25% again. So even though we are still up 6%, is because in the first 2 or 3 months of the year, we carried a lot of overproduction or a lot of extra volume that is still decreasing as the months go by and our exports decrease. I'll show you in detail as we go on. This graph I made is the exports of Ecuador in pounds by month, by year. And I know there's a lot of lines, but let me just, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the bottom line, the bottom blue line is 2010 exports by month, how much we exported in January, February, March. That's the blue line. Then you have the orange, then you have every other line that goes upward from that bottom of the graph. And as you can see, in January of 2010, Ecuador's monthly exports were 20 million pounds. That's it. In January of 2019, we did 88 million pounds. So that was 4 times the amount of volume we did in 2010. I did this just to show that our growth is steady and we have grown month by month and year by year. You barely see any year that collides with the other, which means that it's rare to see that we have a January of a following year, of the future year, that is less than the January of the previous year, right? So you can see that every January we go up a little, every February we go up a little compared to the February from the previous year. Well, now COVID happened and this changed everything, and I'm going to show you. So our production lines that we saw in the previous graph were very steady, right? They were almost straight lines. They had some sort of tendency in our hot season, which is around March, April, and May, which showed a peak, but in the past. But in the last, let me go back a little bit and show you it becomes kind of steady, the production. Once we hit the April or May, we become kind of steady for the rest of the year with an output. This year in January and February, we were doing very well. We were up 25%. We had a good increase from 2019 to 2020. And in March, the lockdown began. And Ecuador went into a very serious lockdown because we were very, very seriously hit by COVID. The lockdown in the first 2 weeks was complete. And after the 2 weeks, the government started to offer permits to the exporting sectors of Ecuador, not only shrimp, but bananas, flowers, the people who export products. Our economy needed that income. So under the regulations and the controls and everything that people had to go through, suits and face masks and shields and everything that you already know from this year, they allowed us to go back to work to some degree. So March was supposed to be a month where we were going to have exports of about 140 million pounds, but we instead had exports of 116 million pounds because the lockdown was March 16 or 17, and we have a harvest that happened on March 20th, which was not able to happen. I'm going to show you later what happened exactly in those months as far as production and harvesting and the days that the plants worked. I have something prepared for that. Then we have April, which was 128 million pounds, and May with a very large number of 159 million pounds exported in 1 month. That is our record historically. We have never exported that much shrimp before. And it is due to the fact that in March and April, the farmers had to hold back and they had to leave the shrimp in the ponds because the factories did not have workers. Now, everybody who's a producing country, who's a producer or has a packing plant knows that without workers, the packing plant cannot move. So this is what happened in March and April. That's why the numbers are lower than what they are in May. When the packing plants had limits, the farmers couldn't harvest. That raw material was kept in the farms, and that shrimp, of course, keeps on growing. You can't stop it from growing. You have to continue to feed it. It dies. Everybody knows you don't feed it, it's gone. So you have to continue to feed. And by the end of May, we had 159 million pounds, which was an accumulation of late harvest, but it wasn't a stored product. We do not store product in Ecuador. We don't have a large capacity for storage. So it was live stock that was harvested. Now, when you have the shrimp in the pond, you do not seed new shrimp until you know the date that you are going to harvest the main pond, the grow out pond, right? Nobody seeds. If they don't know what day the harvest is, you cannot put the seed in because then you have pressure to harvest. So in March and April, the farmers stepped back from seeding new larvae. And that's why you see a very important drop in July, because from March, we did not seed, from March, we did not seed the farms immediately as our programs are and our protocols of seeding. We had to hold back because of the pandemic, and that's where the output decreases. by July and August of this year. We have a 20% drop in July, and we have a 7% drop in August in our production. I'm going to explain a little of what happened, and I think a lot of you are going to relate and understand. But in Ecuador, we have harvest. These are two graphs. You have one on the left, one on the right. In Ecuador, we have harvest according to the lunar cycles. So we harvest when it's a new moon and when it's a full moon, right? That's the time when the shrimp's texture is, for us, ideal. The shrimp is hard, is healthy, is swimming, and it's a good time to harvest. It's very active at night. That's what we see on the left. On the left, that's a usual month without COVID in Ecuador. The packing plants that have a capacity, I'm saying this is an example, there's a packing plant that would have a capacity of 400,000 pounds of freezing capacity per day, processing and freezing capacity. Those plants, when it's off harvest during the month, you can see that there's the numbers 1 through 30, that's the 30 days of the month. They usually are not full. They do not buy shrimp in an off harvest, right? We have a word, we call it the quiebra, which is the term for in the middle of two tides, right? Of two harvests, the quiebra. So we have 50,000, that plant in the first few days of the month without a harvest can have 50,000, which is 50,000 pounds per day. That's about 10% of their capacity. But then when the peak harvesting begins, which is the full moon or the new moon, it gets up to 400. So they get up to full capacity in a peak. They only work full capacity for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and then they go back down for the rest of the off harvest until there's a new moon, and then it goes back up. So there's about 2.5 moons every month. So that's how our harvesting works. Why I explain this, because during COVID, this wasn't a possibility for the second cycle. So we completely missed the second cycle of March, the second harvesting of March. And that shrimp had to be held back in the farms, and then the farmers had to harvest it later on, because everybody knows when you have a density and you are used to a protocol, there's only so much live volume that your pond can withstand. So if your shrimp grows too much, you start to lose animals and to have deaths in the pond. So they had to forcibly, they had to harvest during the rest of the days. And what happened is similar to the graph on the right. So during the first week of COVID, we said, when customers asked, well, how's production? And we answered in the first weeks of the lockdown, we said, our plants are down to 20% of their production. And if this continues, that could mean that we're going to have an output 20 to 30% of a decrease from our normal production. It didn't really happen because when the government stepped in and said, I'm going to allow you to work at a percentage with special permits, everybody was so desperate to harvest that they harvested every single day, not regarding the texture or the moon. So we forced our harvests without any concern for the texture, because we had to take the shrimp out of the ponds, right? And that's what created that output in March and April of 110 million pounds, instead of a decrease to half what we thought was going to happen. Okay, so just to keep on going in line with that, our projected exports without COVID are the red dotted line. We did 132 million pounds in February, and that was fine. There was no COVID yet in Ecuador. Their COVID had already started in China, and we were already starting to see a China demand slowing down a little bit, but we had shifted our exports to USA and to Europe pushing a little more product to those markets, trying to set off the lack of demand from China. Their Chinese New Year sales weren't any good, so importers were protesting and saying, well, we can't continue to keep on buying product if we're not consuming it. Okay, so this is our projected export line. If COVID wouldn't have happened, it would have been very stable for the months of March, April, May, June, July, and August. Maybe in September, it would have dropped a little. That's when our cold weather starts. And when it drops a little, it really drops 5–10%. So it's not a big drop. And then we have a big harvest in November because the farmers have gotten used to seeding and arranging their protocols to have a lot of product in November, because that's a very high price moment when Chinese importers come in for preparations of the Chinese New Year stock. So the farmers already know this, and throughout the years they have gathered the information, and now they set aside a lot of production to be harvested in October and November to have product for that moment that they requested. All right, so our July exports compared to previous years show a decrease in 21%. We saw it in the other graphs. This is just a different way of showing it. In August, we are down 7%. This is the first time in many years that we are down by 7% from the previous year. Our optimistic projected exports, and why I say optimistic is because we really do not know what's underwater and what's alive right now in the shrimp ponds. We have seeded less densities. We were very careful with the amount of product we seeded in order to try to control our cost of production, our cost per pound, knowing that the market was very low. And it was, I think in Ecuador, it was lower than anywhere in the world, because as you'll see in the next graphs, our production is exported mainly to China. But with China very hit by the COVID, and with the China government restrictions on packing plants and the risks of exporting to China right now for Ecuadorian packers, we had to aim our shrimp exports differently. So why I say this is optimistic is because we do not know what the next 3 months as far as our exports to China mean, and they are a big player in our exports. If all things continue as they are right now, we will end with between 0 and 3% increase of production exports for this year. This is our exports by region since 2010 and 2020. And now I'm going to enter into a part of the presentation where I'm going to show you where our exports go. In 2010, we clearly had two main markets and a bunch of little markets. We had Europe and North America. And then as we started to step into Asia, and EMS took a lot of the production out of the picture for 2013 and 14, we stepped into China with strength, and we stayed there with our head-on product, right? You can see the green, how it grows and how our exports to China grow. And whatever we grew in production was sent to China because it was a growth that was related to a demand that we were feeling. So the reason why we were growing is because every month China wanted more and we didn't have more. So we continued to grow as long as they wanted more product from us. We were making more product for them. I separated the graphs. It's the same information, but here I just show that Europe is relatively the same over the years. There's a small increase in the last 3 years in their purchases from Ecuador. This is data from our exports to these countries. So this is from the Ecuadorian exports. Okay. And it's all again in pounds. For anybody who joined late, everything is in pounds. So year to date, we are at about 200 million pounds to Europe. We have exported the same in 2020 than in 2019 until August to the USA. And year to date, we are at about 550 million pounds to China in August. These pie charts show clearly our dependency on the Chinese market from the beginning when they started to grow in Ecuador, and shows how aggressive the growth in sourcing product from Ecuador was. In 2010, we have two markets, which are the price makers of 2010 and previous. So in the past, in order to set a price to the farmer, what would happen is we would call Europe, call USA, that was it. Two calls, you know what the price was. Asia started to come in. They started to come in 2011. You can see them at 7%. You can see them at 15% in 2012. And you can see how they go increasing as the years go by. 15% Asia in 2012, 25% Asia in 2013, 31, 44% in 2015. And from 2015, we took it all the way to 2019, and you have 68% to Asia at the end of last year. Now, when the market grows like that, it actually looks like the other two decreased. But as you can see, the other two markets, Europe and North America, did not decrease at all, and we did not stop shipping the same amount of product that we were shipping to them. We just didn't grow in those markets. Our growth was to Asia, mainly to China, of course, because they were taking our head-on product. So our growth in factories was head-on oriented. So our production lines are head-on oriented, okay, which is a little different, of course, than producing value added. Here are exports in our last 3 months, right? So we can see that we were very heavy on China in June, which was our usual exports. That's what a usual month looked like, a little bit more even to Asia. In June, we would export last year, 2019, maybe 63% to China. Right now, it's only 54 in June. Then you have July, which drops to 26%, and then you have August, which drops to, which increases from 26 to 33%. But this August export, in my opinion, is the ideal export situation for any producing country, is to have a third of your eggs in each of the baskets of the market, right? You have 3 markets, you have 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. If somebody wants a little more shrimp, they have to increase the price in order to get it. If somebody doesn't want any shrimp, you still have other 2 strong markets that can take it. So your diversification in the case of August is ideal. And that's what's causing today's improvement in the raw material prices in Ecuador. We had very, very steep drops in the prices in Ecuador in June and previous, because our main market, which is China, was a very risky market for us. And actually we had 3 packing plants shut down. So that risk transferred to, I do not want to buy head-on for the packing plants. I do not want to use the raw material for head-on, and immediately transferred to the price dropping a lot in the raw material. This is, it's basically the same information, but it's month by month. As you can see, every month was identical. There's a lot of product going to Asia. There's the same to Europe, the same to the United States, until the very last graph in August, where you can see that the 3 bars are equal amounts of product, right? And as I mentioned in the past graph, this is our ideal point, is to try to share the 3 markets equally. Our exports by month to the regions show I put this because it shows a little better how we are trying to grow in Europe since the pandemic in April. We are trying to grow our exports to Europe. We are trying to grow in North America our exports. We are putting a lot of effort into growing our value-added exports into the USA. And we are doing definitely a lot of effort in trying to send to China only what they really, really are demanding, what they're most wanting at the moment. China did have very big months, and Asia did have very big months in exports from Ecuador, which means they probably have still stocks in their warehouses of product. So that drop is not only we don't want to send them because we are afraid, but it's also they do not want to buy because they have some stocks in inventory, which is understandable in a COVID year. I'm going to go really quick through this because I think time is almost up. January exports, in January, we had an increase in our exports from January of last year. And we already knew that China was starting to have some problems in COVID, but really in January, we had an extra production and we knew we could not sell more product to China because it would only create a bigger dependency on one market. They were already 65 or 60% of our exports. If we sent them more product, it would make us more reliant on their market and their reactions. In February, it's clear that we start swaying to Europe and to North America as well because of the COVID in China. We did have a very big month, and you can see that we do increase our exports to China from 68 or to Asia in total, but from 68 to 81 million. But we also increased our export to Europe and to North America. Then March comes, and here's when Ecuador slowed down from what it was shipping before. And you can see that we had an identical month to the same month of the previous year. Then you have April. And for the first time in a while, it happened that we decreased our exports to Europe and North America to half of what they were because they were in lockdown and they weren't taking any product. A lot of product was returned from the water. Even a lot of customers said, I really cannot take it. The warehouses are full and I have no sales. During that month, China thought they were getting back in business. They were reopening, and the importers took and stepped into the market strong to buy some product because our prices had decreased a little bit, and they stepped in to start taking more product and to take a position, have inventories for the future months, thinking that maybe the COVID situation wasn't going to get too worse in the rest of the world, or that it wasn't going to last as long. That's speculation, but I'm guessing that's what they thought. That's why they took a lot of volume from us in April, and the same happened in May. In May, we had our highest ever export to Asia, which was 121 million pounds. Out of that 121, which is Asia, China is 115, I think, or 110. I think it's 115 in the month of May. We see that Europe and North America start to recuperate. They're getting slowly back to their normal buying levels because they're starting to reopen. They were hit first, then Ecuador. And then we have June, which is summer season in the United States. You can clearly see that the US needed some product. There was a decrease of the exports from India, of course, and from other parts into the US, and we stepped in, and we are very close. It's 3 weeks arrival, and we did a little bit more exports to the US. This is 28 million pounds in the month of June, and in the month of July, we had our highest ever export to USA with 35 million pounds, which is double what we usually do in the middle of the summer when they were short from products from India. As you can see, Europe also increased to 34 million, and we decreased our exports to China to 25 million pounds. In August, we had our highest ever export to Europe, which is 36 million pounds. We have now all of this is accompanied by a very low price of the raw material, a very low price on our exports. So when you have these low prices, because your main market is not, our main market is Asia, our main market was not demanding large amounts of product, these low prices help the retailers, the restaurants, all the distributors to promote the shrimp better and to give more promotions, discounts, and that eventually turns out to have a positive effect on consumption. So consumption did go up or has gone up from the past. It's just the same information, but you can see how deep our dive is in Asia, in China mainly, in export volume, a drop of 70%. Eventually, they will consume their inventories and come back to buy product from Ecuador again. I have the same in Europe, where you can see that our growth in percentages is very interesting in July and August. In USA, our growth is double. We exported double of what we were exporting in the same month of last year to them, which adds up to already in August, we have exported the same amount of shrimp to the USA up to then in August of 2020, we already did the same amount as all of 2019. Our exports to China without Asia, in all of my graphs, you see Asia, that includes Japan, Taiwan, includes Vietnam exports, it includes our exports to Russia, to all these markets. Now, this is only China, and you can see that we are clearly dropping a lot in China. I mean, total year to date, we are down 11%. Last month, 63%, and then July, 76%. This is the price reference of the price to the raw material. And as you can see, in 2016, 17, and 18, when the volume, which is the brown shaded area, starts to increase, the market has to correct in a lower price, because that's when we came out of the EMS and everybody started to have healthy productions, which is good for everyone. And the problem is, with everybody producing healthy, everybody having good numbers at the end of the year, of course, the market has to decrease in order to accommodate and to make room for getting new consumers to step into our product. Then, of course, 2020 is a very steep dive because of the COVID situation, and it's clearly marked in the graph, right? Then you see the green shaded, which is our exports to China, to China, drop heavily. And as soon as they drop heavily and we stop shipping to China for 2 months, the prices bounce right back up in Ecuador. Why? Because now we didn't ship them any product, and they come back to us after not having received any product, saying, do you have product? And we have it, but we are shipping it now to Europe and USA. So if you want it, you have to pay a better price, because now we already have committed our sales to Europe and USA. So if you do want the product, you need to increase your price. And that's what happened in the past few days. So yeah, as somebody said previously, we are looking to have a good end of the year in 2020 as far as prices go, and hopefully with volumes we won't be too low to lose the gain in volume that we already have throughout the year. This is the same information, just to zoom in to 2019 and 2020. You can see that our exports look about the same from one year to the other, with a little peak in May because of all the product that had been saved and not harvested in March and April of 2019. Thank you very much. That is my presentation. Oh, sorry, but your microphone is mute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Thanks for providing a very detailed information to us, because we are in Asia. We always look at Ecuador as an amazing entrant into how you have made your way back in 2010 with just 2% share to China to almost 68% share in 2019 in the 9 years. So big growth. Coupled with that, the shipment takes almost 2 months from Ecuador to China. In spite of that, you guys are able to make a very big impact on the Chinese market. It's excellent to see that. And I could see from your presentation that you are expecting October, November going to be a good harvest. And it's going to be, because you also say that it always benefits the farmers. We hope it comes true. And thank you again for such providing us a big insight information about Ecuador. Very informative indeed. Thank you very much. Okay.